I never imagined my life could collapse in a single day. I walked into the office that morning, expecting the usual chaos of meetings, calls, and deadlines, only to find a cold, unfamiliar silence. My assistant avoided my eyes. "Something wrong?" I asked, noticing the tension. She swallowed hard. "It's the board, sir. They voted. Effective immediately, you're relieved of all CEO duties." I blinked. What are you saying?" My voice cracked. They've transferred control to Mr. Lang and Mr. Vickers," she murmured, glancing at the closed doors. I laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. "Transferred who? That's impossible." "That's not impossible, sir," she interrupted softly. "It's legal." "And final." I froze, staring at the floor, trying to process her words. "Mr. Lang, my business partner, my friend of over 10 years, and Mr. Vickers, the rival I had always thought we could outmaneuver, had conspired against me. My company, the one I built from nothing, was gone. My reputation, my life's work, stolen while I slept. I stormed toward the boardroom, my shoes clacking against the polished floor. "Lang, Vickers!" "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my chest tight, my mind reeling. Mr. Lang looked up from a pile of papers, eyes cold. "Good morning. I see you've heard that you've taken everything from me?" I snapped. "Explain yourselves." "We're just doing what's best for the company," Lang replied smoothly. "It's a strategic move. You've been distracted." "Distracted?" "Distracted. I built this company." I spat, feeling the sting of humiliation. Mr. Vickers leaned back in his chair, a smug grin on his face. "You did, yes. But we saw the opportunity. We acted. I trusted you," I said, voice trembling. "We were supposed to be partners." "Friends," Lang shrugged. "Trust doesn't pay dividends, does it?" I felt rage bubbling, but more than that, a deep gnawing despair. My phone vibrated. A message from Miranda flashed on the screen. "Maybe this is the wake-up call you needed." My heart sank further. Even she, the woman I thought would support me, seemed detached, perhaps secretly pleased. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was spinning, replaying every conversation, every decision, every moment I had believed in them. "I had been blind. Is this permanent?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Completely," Vickers said. "The legal documents have been signed. Any attempt to reverse it will be futile." I clenched my fists. "Futile? You think I'll just—" Lang cut me off. "Save yourself the theatrics." The board made a decision. "You're done here." I left the room feeling hollow. The walls seemed to close in, and every step echoed like the ticking of a clock counting down my humiliation. Outside, colleagues whispered, their eyes darting toward me, some pitying, others calculating. I had become a spectacle, a fallen leader, a cautionary tale. My phone buzzed again. A message from my friend Tom read, "Heard the news. I'm sorry." "Sorry? Sorry didn't matter, not now. Not after everything I had invested, emotionally and financially." I wandered to the rooftop terrace, needing air, needing space to think, to breathe. The city stretched below me, indifferent and vast, a mirror to my emptiness. I remembered the first day I opened the office, the first investor pitch, the long nights building a vision from scraps. And now it had all been swept away. Why? I whispered to myself. Why would they? A voice interrupted my thoughts. Because they're better at pretending than you are. I turned sharply. A colleague, Maria, had followed me. She looked uncomfortable, her hands twisting nervously. They stole everything, I said. I know, she said softly. I wanted to see if you were okay. You've been so withdrawn since the news, okay? I laughed bitterly. Okay, my company is gone. My life's work gone. And they smile while I stand here? Maria hesitated. Some people, they don't realize the damage until it's too late. Maybe there's a way to recover. I shook my head. Recover? They took everything. My company, my clients, my reputation. I don't even know who I can trust anymore. You still have your skills, she said. Your ideas. Maybe this isn't the end. I stared at her, my chest tight. Do you really believe that? After everything? After Lang, Vickers, even Miranda? My voice trailed off. I do, she said firmly. Because you're not just a businessman. You're a fighter. Her words struck me, stirring a flicker of something I had buried beneath despair and rage. But it was faint, fragile, like embers under ashes. Could I believe her? Could I find the strength to rise again? I spent the evening pacing my apartment, reliving every moment of betrayal. The stock plummeted, my employees scattered, and news outlets painted me as the failed visionary. I tried to call Miranda, no answer. I tried to reach Lang and Vickers. Blocked, every connection severed. I remembered the contract meetings, the smiles that hid ambition, the words of encouragement that were all lies. "You trusted them," I muttered. "And look where it got you. Sleep never came." I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing with anger, humiliation, and a strange, creeping clarity. They had underestimated me? They had assumed my despair would break me entirely, but beneath it, something new was forming. "I'll make them pay," I whispered to myself. "Not today, not tomorrow, but I will." By the early hours, the rage simmered into focus. I began jotting down notes, sketching out plans. Not just to reclaim what was mine, but to rise higher than I ever had before. The betrayal, the humiliation, it became the fuel. I remembered Tom's message again. "I'm sorry," I deleted it. Sorry wouldn't help. Forgiveness wouldn't help. Only action, only strategy. As dawn crept over the skyline, I stood by the window, staring out at the city. "This isn't over," I said quietly. "It's just beginning." And for the first time since the fall, I felt the stirrings of control. I didn't know the path yet, but I knew one thing. I would rise. I would rebuild. I would reclaim everything, and they would regret ever crossing me. The betrayal had broken me. But it had also awakened something fiercer than despair, determination. And I would let it guide me, step by calculated step. I woke to silence. The apartment was empty, but that wasn't unusual. It had been weeks since anyone had visited. My phone buzzed occasionally, friends checking in, but their words felt hollow, distant. "How are you holding up?" one text asked. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, then deleted it. How was I holding up? Broken, betrayed, invisible. I wandered to the kitchen, poured coffee I didn't want, sat on the edge of the counter, and stared at the floor. The smell of roasted beans did nothing. The bitter taste of failure lingered more than the coffee ever could. A memory struck me like a punch. The early days in the office, Lang and Vickers laughing in the corner while I presented a pitch I had worked months on. And Miranda, always smiling, nodding along, whispering, "You're brilliant." I had trusted them all. Every one of them had smiled as they plotted my ruin. I held the small golden plaque I had received for the company's first successful client. I traced my fingers over it. "It's over," I whispered. "All of it." The plaque felt heavy in my hands, a symbol of everything stolen from me. My effort, my dreams, my trust. I sat in the living room replaying every meeting, every handshake. "Do you trust me?" I had asked Lang once years ago. He'd laughed. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" Now I knew the answer. Trust was a weapon to use against me. I tried to work, to read, to distract myself. Each email, each notification, each news update reminded me of my company's takeover, the layoffs, the public humiliation. My thoughts spiraled. Did I miss signs? Did I trust too easily? I reviewed contracts, emails, financial statements. I had done everything by the book. Yet they had outplayed me. The apartment felt suffocating. The walls seemed to lean inward, whispering reminders of failure. I paced. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I glanced at the calendar. Weeks had passed since the takeover, but every day felt like an eternity. The betrayal was constant, unrelenting. I called Tom, my closest friend. His voicemail greeted me. "Hey man, just checking in." I hung up. I didn't have the energy to answer, couldn't let anyone see me like this. Vulnerable, shattered, a man whose life had been ripped away in hours. I pulled out the box of mementos from the office, photos of our first team outing, letters from clients praising me, the first prototype we built from scratch. I handled each item like it carried the weight of my own soul. They had taken the company, but these remained. At least these still belonged to me. A small note fell out from the box. Miranda's handwriting. "I know we can make it big together. Trust me." I laughed bitterly. Together. She had meant together with Vickers. Together to betray me. Rage flared hot and sharp. I clenched my fists. How easily she had discarded me. How casually she had taken everything she pretended to love. I sank into the couch, hugging the plaque to my chest. I was a fool, I whispered. A blind, trusting fool. My own voice sounded strange, distant, empty. I thought about confronting Miranda, about storming into Vickers' office and demanding justice. But the words caught in my throat. They had power now. I had none. My rage simmered, but my options were limited. The phone buzzed again. A message from Maria, a former colleague. "We're all thinking of you. Don't give up." I stared at it, feeling the twinge of connection, but also frustration. Don't give up? How could I not give up when everything I built had been taken, when the people I trusted most had turned against me? I wandered to the balcony, letting the cold air wash over my face. The city stretched below, indifferent. People moved on, unaware that I had fallen so completely. I envied them. Not their lives, just their ignorance, their freedom from betrayal. A thought pierced through the fog of despair. Maybe I could still reclaim control. Not today, not yet, but eventually. The betrayal, the humiliation, it had broken me, yes, but it had also opened my eyes. I had seen who they truly were. I had seen my own weaknesses. And now I could plan. I could wait. I could rise, I spoke aloud, though no one could hear. I won't be a victim forever. I'll find a way back. I'll rebuild. And I'll make sure they regret this. My voice, hoarse from disuse, carried over the balcony. The city didn't respond, didn't care, but I felt a flicker of purpose ignite inside me. I spent hours replaying every interaction. Lang's subtle manipulations, Vickers' charm, Miranda's smiles. They all left traces, clues I had missed. If I could understand their moves, predict them, I could counter them. I could regain control. I went through the office files I had saved at home. Financial statements, contracts, client lists, everything meticulously organized. If I learned their patterns, studied their weaknesses, I could rebuild from the ground up. Slowly, carefully, without exposing myself. Patience would be my weapon. Night fell. I didn't sleep. I stared at the city lights, imagining scenarios, strategies, possibilities. Each one a thread I could pull to unravel their advantage. I didn't feel safe, not yet, but I felt alive. Alive in a way I hadn't since the betrayal. My phone buzzed again. Another message, another reminder of normal life trying to touch me. I ignored it. Now I needed solitude to think, to process, to plot. I couldn't trust anyone completely, not yet. Not until I regained power. I walked to the box of memories again. I held each piece, letting nostalgia and grief wash over me. But grief alone wouldn't help. I whispered to the empty apartment. This is just the beginning. I remembered my first pitch the day the company had first landed a major client. The joy, the excitement, the belief in something bigger than myself. That belief was not lost. It had been buried, but not extinguished. I could revive it. I would revive it. Hours passed. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I barely noticed time. All I could think about was the betrayal, the injustice, and the path forward. By dawn, a plan began to take shape. Step 1, gather information. Step 2, rebuild influence quietly. Step 3, reclaim power strategically. Step 4, ensure that those who betrayed me could never hurt me again. I looked at my reflection in the window, dark eyes staring back at me, hollow but determined. The man I was yesterday, naive, trusting, devastated, was gone. In his place stood someone who had seen the darkness and refused to be consumed. Someone who would rise carefully, deliberately. I won't be broken, I said aloud. Not anymore. I'll take back everything they stole, and more. The city below remained indifferent, but I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt control stirring within me, fragile but unmistakable. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I had to begin. I gathered the remaining documents, notes, and memories, setting them carefully on the table. Each one was a reminder of what I had lost, and a tool for what I would gain. I took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the horizon. I will not be a victim forever. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. I woke to the hum of the city outside, sunlight spilling through the blinds like it had a purpose, like it wanted me to notice it. My apartment smelled faintly of coffee and paper, reminders of routines I had abandoned in despair. I stretched, and for the first time in weeks I felt something strange. Clarity. It wasn't just a good mood or a momentary lift, it was awareness. I remembered everything. Every betrayal, every smirk, every contract and whisper that had led to the theft of my company. But more than that, I remembered how powerless I had felt. That memory didn't paralyze me now, it motivated me. I sat at my desk, my hands tracing the edges of my old business plan. The words didn't make me ache anymore. They made me plan. I've got a second chance, I whispered to myself. This time I won't fail. My phone buzzed. A notification from an old colleague. Lunch tomorrow? Catch up? I smiled faintly, typing back carefully. Sure, let's meet. Every person, every interaction would be deliberate now. No more blind trust. No more giving others the keys to my future. I spent the morning reviewing old contracts and emails. Subtle things I had missed before now jumped out. Lang's phrasing in that one memo, Vickers' careful wording in the meeting notes, tiny cracks revealing their intentions. I didn't need to confront them yet. I needed patience, observation, control. There was a knock at the door. I froze. The building's hallways were usually empty at this hour. Who is it? I called, cautious. Mr. Carter? It's Simon from the consulting firm. His voice carried a mix of familiarity and formality. Simon had been a mentor of sorts, guiding me when the company was young. I opened the door. Simon, come in. He stepped inside, eyebrows raised at the room. You've been laying low. I needed space. Needed to think. My voice was calm even. Calculated. He nodded. Good. I've been watching your situation. It's rough, but you're smart, resourceful. You can rebuild. I know what I have to do, I said. I just need the right approach. Simon leaned against the wall. Then we plan carefully, step by step. Observe, prepare, strike when the time is right. You're not the man you were when this started. No, I'm not, I admitted. I've learned. And I remember everything. Every lie, every manipulation. This time I'll stay ahead. The conversation turned to strategy. Simon outlined opportunities, financial moves, networking events, potential allies. I listened, interrupted occasionally with pointed questions. What about Lang? How would he react if I applied pressure subtly? Lang is overconfident, Simon said. He'll underestimate you. That's your advantage. And Vickers? I asked, imagining the rival CEO's smug face. He's ruthless, careful. I can't make a misstep. You won't, Simon said. You've got foresight now. You can predict, adapt, and control outcomes better than ever. Just stay disciplined, I nodded. Each word settled in my mind. I felt a sense of focus I hadn't felt since the betrayal. The anger was still there, but it was sharp, purposeful, not blinding. By afternoon, I was drafting a plan. Not just a business plan, a life plan. Step 1, rebuild my reputation quietly, starting with small wins. Step 2, identify weaknesses in those who betrayed me. Step 3, position myself for leverage. Step 4, reclaim power methodically. Each point was deliberate, precise. I paused, looking out the window. The city moved around me, indifferent, chaotic, but I could see its rhythm now. I could predict patterns, anticipate moves. Every person was a variable, every action a potential advantage. A knock on the door pulled me from thought again. Delivery for Mr. Carter, said a courier. I signed and took the package inside. It was an unexpected financial notice, an early dividend from a small investment Simon had suggested months ago. I hadn't expected it to be so timely. Opportunity is aligning, I thought. Later, I met Simon at a quiet cafe. Observation first, he reminded me. Learn who will support you, who will try to undermine you. Measure reactions. Collect information. I will, I said, sipping black coffee, tasting the bitterness as clarity. I've learned to wait, to anticipate. I won't rush this time. Every move will be deliberate. And your emotions? Simon asked. They can be a weapon if controlled, or a liability if uncontrolled. I've controlled them, I said. I've turned anger into focus, pain into determination. This is no longer about being hurt. It's about reclaiming what's mine. He smiled slightly. Good. Remember, the world doesn't forgive mistakes, but it does reward preparation. Be ready. Back at the apartment, I reviewed old client files. Each interaction, each contract, each signature was now part of a map. I could see where influence had slipped, where trust had been misused. I annotated, analyzed, connected dots. I was learning the patterns, understanding vulnerabilities. I thought about Miranda. The way she smiled, the way she feigned affection, the way she plotted silently. And the wealthy suitor, lurking behind her schemes, charming, calculating, unaware I had remembered everything. I smiled faintly. They didn't know. They wouldn't know. Not yet. Evening fell. I stood on the balcony watching lights flicker in the distance. My hands clutched the small notebook where I had written plans, observations, possibilities. Patience, I whispered. Control, observation, preparation, and then action. The air was cool, the city restless, but inside me, a storm of focus raged. Each day, each hour, each interaction would be calculated. I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't act without certainty. But I would rise. And when I did, it would be absolute. A text from a friend appeared. You're looking better these days. Hope all is okay. I smiled at the screen, typed back carefully. Better. I'm fine. Just working. Fine wasn't the word, but it was the mask I needed. Every contact, every exchange could reveal my strategy or mislead them if misused. Night deepened. I reviewed my notes again, outlining contacts, weak points, and possible alliances. I envisioned every scenario: Miranda's attempts to manipulate, the suitor's subtle sabotage, Lang's overconfidence, Vickers' ambition. I could see their moves before they made them. Knowledge was power, and I held it. I sat back, exhausted but alert. For the first time since the betrayal, I didn't feel helpless. I had the plan, the foresight, and the determination. I had the second chance, and I would not waste it. I will rise. I whispered to the darkened room. I will reclaim everything. I will not be broken again. The city slept, oblivious, but I felt awake. A new me was emerging, strategic, observant, patient, and unstoppable. And when the moment came, those who had stolen from me would realize their mistake. Tonight, I rested only in readiness. Tomorrow, I would act, carefully, deliberately, with eyes wide open. The path was long, but the direction was clear. I was no longer the man who had been blindsided. I was the man who remembered. I was the man who would win. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, the city still wrapped in the hush of morning. My coffee was hot, the black liquid grounding me as I scanned emails and reports. Every detail mattered now. Every project, every memo, every signature could be leveraged. Morning, Carter. Jenna from marketing waved as she passed. You're early again. I like the quiet, I replied, eyes still on my screen. It helps me plan, she nodded, smiling faintly. Planning or scheming? Both, I said without looking up. Depends on the day. Her laugh was light, unaware of how accurate the words were. Planning, scheming. Every move I made now was deliberate. Each interaction was a test, an observation. I skimmed the reports from yesterday's meetings. Subtle mistakes, missed details, small cracks in my rival's oversight. Perfect. They would reveal more than they intended, and I would notice. Carter, can I have a word? A voice behind me. It was Lang, one of my former colleagues, now someone I needed to monitor carefully. I turned, offering a polite smile. Of course. What's up? He hesitated, then leaned slightly closer. Just wanted to check how you're settling back in. Rumors can get out of hand. I appreciate it, I said smoothly, noting the slight twitch in his eye. I'm settling just fine. Focused on results, he nodded, stepping back. Good. Keep it that way. I watched him go, inwardly noting every micro-expression, every hesitation. Lang was ambitious, but he underestimated my memory, my awareness. That underestimation would be useful later. By mid-morning, I was meeting with Simon, my mentor. We found a quiet corner in the lounge, away from prying eyes. How are you feeling about your progress? He asked, eyes sharp, always searching for hidden patterns. Focused, I replied. I've already noticed errors and gaps in several projects. Minor but telling. Good, Simon said. Observation is key. You're not just doing the work, you're reading the people around you. Exactly, and small victories matter. Each one builds momentum and exposes weaknesses, he nodded. Patience will be your ally. The people who betrayed you? They're careless. They'll reveal themselves if you wait. I allowed a small smile. I've learned to wait. Meeting over, I returned to my office. Miranda's name flashed in my mind, though she wasn't here. Her betrayal lingered. A shadow I used as fuel, not weakness. The wealthy suitor, the one she had courted behind my back, also came to mind. I could anticipate his next moves if I paid attention. Every smile, every casual interaction, every negotiation, these were clues. Carter, do you have a moment? It was Laura from finance, one of the few who had stayed neutral through the chaos. Of course. What's on your mind? She leaned in, lowering her voice. There's a discrepancy in the Q2 report. Nothing major, but I think it's worth double-checking before the board sees it. Good catch, I said, taking the file. Let's review it together. As we worked, I noticed subtle signs. Hesitation from a colleague, reluctance to share data, a small misstatement here and there. Each tiny slip was a puzzle piece, and I was piecing together the bigger picture. Later, I attended a meeting with the senior team. Miranda and the suitor weren't present, but their influence lingered. I observed carefully, catching minor hints of strategic missteps others hadn't noticed. I asked questions, casually pointing out inefficiencies, making suggestions that guided the discussion toward my advantage. Lang shot me a glance, irritation flickering across his face. He thought he was subtle, but his annoyance was clear. A small victory. After the meeting, I lingered in the conference room, reviewing notes and planning my next moves. Simon's advice echoed in my mind. Patience, observation, leverage. Every interaction now was data. Every conversation could be a weapon or shield, Carter. Jenna's voice interrupted my thoughts. Lunch break? I'll join you, I said. It was a calculated choice, building alliances while maintaining an aura of focus and detachment. Over sandwiches, we discussed projects, minor office news, and shared frustrations. I listened more than I spoke, letting information flow freely. I smiled at the right moments, nodded when appropriate, but held my core intentions close. You're different, she said quietly. More confident, calm, like nothing rattles you anymore. Observant, I said. Experience teaches you which battles are worth fighting. She looked thoughtful, and I knew she would mention it in passing to others. Influence spread subtly, like water finding cracks in stone. Returning to my office, I reviewed old emails and memos from the time before the company was stolen. Every signature, every phrasing choice, every offhand comment became part of my growing map. Miranda's subtle manipulations, the suitor's strategic positioning, Lang's overconfidence, they all formed a pattern I could exploit later. I noted every ally and adversary, classifying them carefully. Some were predictable, others adaptable, and a few could be persuaded to my side. Each person was a variable, every choice a potential lever. A knock at the door pulled me from concentration. Carter, it's Vickers. Thought I'd check in. The rival CEO, the man who had orchestrated my public humiliation, stood there, smug as ever. I gestured for him to enter. Vickers. To what do I owe the pleasure? Curiosity, he said smoothly. I hear you've been making moves. Some say you're rebounding. I smiled faintly, letting the words hang. I'm observing, planning, learning. You should know, I don't rush. His eyes narrowed. Interesting. Don't overestimate yourself. I never underestimate anyone, I replied evenly. I simply prepare. He left, the door clicking behind him. I leaned back, noting his expression, his body language, every subtle tell. Another piece added to the puzzle. By evening, I reviewed the day's interactions. Each conversation, meeting, and observation had been a layer of preparation. Miranda's manipulations were predictable, the suitor's moves cautious yet flawed, and colleagues' ambitions were revealing cracks in the facade. Karma, subtle but inevitable, was beginning to shift. A text from Simon arrived. Well done today. Keep observing. Every move counts, I typed back. I'm ready, patient, strategic. I closed my laptop, the city lights flickering through the window. For the first time, I felt the thrill of control. My rise wasn't about revenge yet. It was about preparation, about understanding every angle before striking. The foundation was being laid. I reflected on the small victories of the day. A rival's irritation, an ally's subtle alignment, a manipulative attempt by Miranda thwarted without her knowing. These were the first signs that the tide was turning. Night fell, but I stayed at my desk reviewing files, analyzing behavior patterns, and noting opportunities. Each action was deliberate. Each word, each gesture, each calculated move would later compound into influence, power, and control, patience, observation, strategy, preparation. I repeated it silently. These were the tools I had acquired through betrayal, failure, and pain. Tomorrow, I would continue the climb. Every day, every interaction, every subtle maneuver was part of a bigger plan. The ladder was within reach, and this time I would climb it methodically, leaving nothing to chance. The city slept, unaware, but I felt awake. Every betrayal I had endured, every loss, every humiliation, it had prepared me. Not for immediate revenge, but for mastery. I closed my notebook and leaned back. My reflection in the window showed a man transformed, confident, detached, observant, and unyielding. The ladder was not just upward, it was toward control, influence, and inevitable reclamation. Tomorrow, I whispered, I climb higher. I watch, I wait, and when the time comes, no one will see me coming. For the first time, the climb didn't feel impossible. It felt inevitable. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, a quiet determination settling over me like armor. Today wasn't about observation or small victories, it was about confrontation. Every move I had planned, every subtle advantage I'd cultivated was ready to be applied. "Morning, Carter," Jenna greeted as she passed my office. Her smile was genuine, unaware of the storm I had prepared. "Morning," I replied. "Today is going to be interesting," she raised an eyebrow. "You sound excited or dangerous?" "Both," I said smoothly. "Depends on who's watching." Her laugh was light, but I didn't need it. I had work to do. By mid-morning, the betrayers began to make their first moves. The rival CEO sent a thinly veiled threat via email, hinting at legal action over a minor contract issue I had anticipated. I read it carefully, noting every implication, then forwarded it to my lawyer with a calm, concise note. "See what I expected. I'll handle it." Later, my former partner walked into the office, attempting the same old tactics: pleading tone, rehearsed regret, subtle guilt-tripping. "I didn't mean for things to get this bad," he said, leaning on the corner of my desk. "I thought maybe we could talk." I looked up, eyes cold but composed. "Talk? About betrayal, deceit, or about the fact that you orchestrated my downfall?" His throat tightened, but he tried to smile. "It's not that simple. Circumstances, I made them simple," I interrupted. "You acted," I observed. "I planned. And now, you're going to see the consequences of your choices." He blinked, realizing this wasn't the same man he had once tried to manipulate. By noon, I had gathered the team for a meeting. I knew the betrayers were attempting to sway colleagues and mutual contacts, spreading rumors, undermining credibility. It was subtle, but I had anticipated it. "Thank you all for coming," I began, voice steady, commanding attention. "I want to address recent actions by individuals who thought they could manipulate outcomes in their favor." A few glances flicked toward the absent parties. My words were pointed but indirect. I've observed discrepancies, misrepresentations, and attempts to shift responsibility unfairly, I continued. We are a team built on trust, transparency, and accountability. Those who violate these principles will face scrutiny, not speculation, but evidence-based consequences. Murmurs ran through the room. I allowed them to settle. Timing, pacing, and subtle emphasis were critical. Later, I called in the betrayers individually. The former partner entered first. "You're making a mistake," he said, trying to maintain composure. "I already made mine," I replied evenly. "I trusted you. I observed your choices. Now you'll observe mine." I presented documents, emails, and recorded meetings, proofs he had hoped would remain buried. Each piece dismantled the narrative he had tried to spin. His face went pale. "Carter, I didn't expect this level of evidence," he stammered. "Didn't expect? Or didn't respect?" "Your choices left me no other option," I said. "You wanted power, recognition, influence. I've ensured you get a fair measure, one you've earned through your own actions." He swallowed hard, realizing that apology, manipulation, or charm would no longer sway me. Next was the rival CEO. He approached with practiced arrogance, confident in his networks and legal threats. "Carter, I suggest we negotiate," he said, voice smooth. "It's in your interest to settle quietly." I smiled faintly, calm, composed. "Negotiation requires mutual respect and trust. You forfeited both the day you stole, deceived, and undermined. Today isn't negotiation, it's observation. And you are the subject." His confident posture faltered slightly. I presented evidence of his manipulation, illegal maneuvers, and attempts to discredit me publicly. Each revelation was precise, methodical, and irrefutable. You anticipated all this? He asked, voice tight. I observed. I replied simply. I learned, and I waited. Every move you made, every attempt to destabilize, was cataloged. Karma, as you'll soon see, isn't arbitrary, it's predictable. He shook his head, disbelief flickering in his eyes. You've turned everything around. I didn't turn it around, I said. I reclaimed what was mine. Every advantage, every opportunity is now deliberately aligned. You're merely witnessing the outcome of your choices. Both betrayers were visibly shaken, the weight of exposure pressing down on them. For the first time, they realized that manipulation, deceit, and arrogance had limits. I allowed a brief pause, then continued, addressing the broader circle, including legal representatives, colleagues, and minor allies. These actions, I said, aren't just about contracts or money. They're about trust, integrity, and accountability. Those who violated these principles will now be held responsible. Transparency isn't optional, it's required. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Allies nodded subtly. My credibility had been restored and amplified. Social proof, evidence, and foresight had combined to shift the power dynamic. Later, in a private meeting with my mentor, Simon, I reviewed the outcomes. They fell exactly as you predicted, he said, eyes gleaming. I've never seen anyone orchestrate exposure with such precision. Observation, patience, and preparation, I replied. They revealed themselves. I only needed to provide the framework for consequences to manifest. You've become formidable, Simon said. Not just reactive, but proactive. The difference is clear. I allowed a small nod, feeling the satisfaction of controlled mastery. The fear, humiliation, and anger that had once consumed me had transformed into focus, strategy, and confidence. By evening, I walked through the office floor, speaking casually to colleagues, acknowledging their work and offering guidance. The atmosphere had shifted subtly. My presence commanded respect, and my decisions carried weight. The betrayer's attempts to influence had failed. The allies had witnessed truth, and the balance had decisively moved in my favor. Carter, incredible work today, Jenna said quietly as we passed in the hallway. You handled everything flawlessly. Thank you, I said. Observation and preparation make all the difference. Remember, small actions reveal more than grand gestures. Her smile was genuine, but she didn't fully understand the depth of planning that had taken place. And that was fine. Information was power, and discretion was a tool I wielded carefully. I reviewed the day's interactions once more in my office. Each conversation, email, and confrontation had been part of a deliberate sequence. Miranda's schemes, the rivals' manipulations, and minor attempts at sabotage had all been anticipated. Every misstep had been leveraged. A message from Simon pinged my phone. Day well executed. They've revealed themselves completely. Next steps, consolidation, and patience, I typed back. Acknowledged. I'll observe, plan, and proceed. Every advantage accounted for. Night fell, the city lights casting long reflections across the office windows. I remained at my desk, reviewing reports, correspondence, and behavioral patterns. Emotional detachment allowed me to see clearly. The betrayer's arrogance, miscalculations, and overconfidence had been their undoing. I allowed a rare, brief smile. This wasn't revenge yet, it was the reckoning. Karma had started naturally, inevitably. The betrayed had become the master of circumstance, and the manipulators were exposed, powerless to intervene. I thought about the lessons of patience, observation, and discipline. The sting of betrayal had been a catalyst, transforming rage into strategy, humiliation into clarity. I had reclaimed control not through impulsive action, but through measured, deliberate mastery. A final email arrived from legal, confirming that the previously threatened lawsuits were voided due to evidence I had submitted. The rival CEO's public reputation had begun to falter, and whispers of integrity questions started circulating. Miranda's attempts to influence social and professional networks had backfired, making her appear manipulative and unreliable. I leaned back, eyes closing briefly. The reckoning was complete, not with vengeance, but with inevitability. Those who had attempted to destroy me had failed spectacularly, and the world now saw the consequences of their actions. In the quiet of the office, I allowed a private thought to surface. I am no longer the victim. Every move I make is deliberate, calculated, and guided by foresight. The power has shifted, and it is mine to command. Tomorrow would be about consolidation, reinforcement, and ensuring the momentum continued. But tonight, I allowed a sense of satisfaction to settle. The betrayal had forged strength. Observation had turned into power. And justice, delivered not in anger but in strategy, had begun. As I closed my laptop, I looked out over the city skyline. The lights shimmered like fragments of opportunity. The climb had been hard, the fall devastating, but the rise had begun. And no one, not Miranda, not the rival, not any observer, could take it away. Tonight, I whispered, the reckoning is done. Tomorrow the empire of control begins. I walked into my office that morning with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Every paper on my desk, every email awaiting my attention, was a tool I had cultivated carefully. Today wasn't just about work, it was about finality. The betrayers Miranda and the rival CEO had no influence left. Every attempt they could make was anticipated, countered, and neutralized. "Carter, your schedule's full today," Jenna said, peeking in. Her eyes carried a mix of admiration and curiosity. "Perfect," I replied. "Full days leave no room for mistakes, or for them to interfere." She nodded, understanding more than she realized. "Do you want me to prep the meeting with the board?" By mid-morning, the first confrontation arrived. Miranda had called, attempting her usual emotional manipulation. "Carter, please, can we talk? I can explain everything." "I never meant—" I cut her off, voice steady, unshaken. "Explain? You abandoned trust, ambition over loyalty. There's nothing to explain, only consequences you've already created for yourself." There was silence on the line, then a shaky, "Carter, I've already observed everything, Miranda. Your actions are transparent, predictable. Every attempt at influence has failed. There's no appeal left, only reflection, and perhaps regret." Her sobs were faint, almost incredulous. She hadn't expected me to remain composed, to anticipate her final move. I didn't think you'd think I'd remain powerless? That I wouldn't reclaim control? Every move you made has been cataloged. Every choice you think was hidden was observed. Karma doesn't require revenge. It only requires attention to detail. She hung up, a silent acknowledgement of defeat. Her power was gone. Next came the rival CEO, entering my office with forced confidence. "Carter, we can still negotiate. Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said smoothly, expecting hesitation. "I don't negotiate with those who betray," I replied evenly. "You've had months to manipulate, to disrupt, to undermine. Every tactic you've tried is documented and countered. Today you witnessed the results of your own actions." He tried to mask unease. "Results?" I gestured to the screen behind me, displaying financial summaries, public statements, and detailed timelines. Every financial maneuver, every attempt to sway partners or colleagues, every smear campaign, it's all here. Evidence, not assumption. Proof, not rumor. He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't anticipate such thorough— You underestimated me. That was your first mistake. Your second was overconfidence. Your third, thinking control was ever yours to take. He glanced down, seeing contracts and emails meticulously organized. Even his most subtle attempts at deception were laid bare. I leaned back slightly, allowing the silence to speak. The room was mine. The narrative was mine. The consequences, inevitable. Later, I addressed my senior colleagues and board members. Miranda and the rival CEO's schemes had tried to erode confidence in my leadership. It was time to restore it, fully and publicly. "Thank you all for gathering," I began. "Recent events have tested more than individual patience. They've tested integrity, strategy, and resilience. I want to clarify our position and acknowledge the truth." Heads turned toward the empty chairs representing the betrayers. Their absence was loud, a testament to their failure. All decisions, all actions have been guided by evidence, transparency, and careful observation. Attempts to manipulate, mislead, or undermine our operations have been neutralized. Those responsible are no longer in positions of influence, and the company's direction remains firm under our leadership. Murmurs of approval echoed through the room. I allowed them to settle. Confidence, earned and evident, was now unmistakable. After the meeting, my mentor, Simon, appeared outside my office. "You've done it, Carter." "Completely," he said, admiration clear in his voice. "Observation, patience, and preparation," I replied. "They revealed themselves through their choices. I only needed to provide the framework for consequences to manifest. You've moved from reaction to control, from victim to authority. It's impressive. Necessary," I corrected gently. Control is never given. It's taken, sustained, and enforced with strategy and foresight. I learned that through every mistake they forced me to endure. By late afternoon, I walked the floor, personally acknowledging colleagues, listening to their concerns, and offering guidance. Each interaction reinforced my restored authority. The whispers, the doubts, the subtle attempts at influence, they were all gone. Confidence radiated back from everyone who had once questioned me. "Carter, seeing you like this, it's inspiring," Jenna said again as we passed. "Good," I said. "It should be. Leadership is not about titles or position. It's about trust, clarity, and consistency. Today is a demonstration of all three." She smiled, and I realized that influence wasn't just restored, it had expanded. People now looked to me for guidance, and those who had tried to sabotage me had inadvertently reinforced my authority through their failures. I returned to my office as evening fell, reviewing the day. Miranda's attempts at emotional manipulation, the rivals' subtle threats, and minor disruptions had all been neutralized. The power balance had shifted completely. I controlled every thread of consequence, every narrative, and every strategic opportunity. A notification pinged. Simon's message. "They've been exposed fully. Your position is unassailable." Next phase: expansion, consolidation, and reinforcement. I typed back simply, "Acknowledged." Observation continues. Every factor accounted for. The city outside darkened, lights flickering like fragments of opportunity. I allowed a rare smile. This wasn't revenge, it was mastery. Every challenge, every betrayal, every moment of humiliation had been transformed into clarity, strategy, and dominance. I reflected privately. Betrayal had forced growth, anger had evolved into precision, and humiliation had become foresight. Each confrontation today had been measured, deliberate, and necessary. The reckoning of Chapter 5 had set the stage. And now the throne, the total consolidation of control, was mine. I picked up the symbolic object from my desk, a gift from the early days of the company, once a reminder of dreams and ambition, now a testament to resilience and reclamation. Holding it, I felt the weight of every lesson learned, every plan executed, and every opportunity seized. The betrayer's influence was gone, leaving only shadows of their past arrogance. Colleagues and minor allies had witnessed the exposure, internalized the lessons, and restored their trust in my leadership. The social, professional, and personal spheres aligned perfectly under my command. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Control isn't temporary," I whispered. "It's deliberate, maintained, and earned. Every choice, every observation, every action has brought me here. Nothing is left to chance." Tonight, I allowed myself a moment of private satisfaction. Every betrayal, every setback, every loss had become a stepping stone. I had not just survived, I had learned, grown, and asserted mastery. Power, influence, and authority were no longer abstract concepts. They were tangible realities, directly linked to the foresight and patience I had cultivated. Tomorrow, consolidation would continue. Expansion, reinforcement, and the subtle shaping of every remaining variable would solidify the empire I had rebuilt. But tonight, for the first time in years, I felt complete. The throne was mine, not through luck, not through impulse, but through deliberate strategy, emotional control, and absolute clarity. As the lights of the office dimmed, I stood by the window surveying the city. The journey from betrayal to reclamation had been brutal, but I had arrived at the pinnacle of control. The lessons of patience, observation, and measured action would guide every decision moving forward. "Tonight," I said softly, "the throne is claimed. The empire is mine. And no one will change that." I woke to sunlight spilling across the floor, catching dust in golden shafts. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and new beginnings. Today wasn't just another day, it was a marker. Months of planning, patience, and observation had brought me to this threshold. Every betrayal, every loss, every humiliating defeat had been transformed into knowledge, foresight, and strategy. "Morning," Elena said softly, standing at the kitchen doorway. Her smile was calm, honest, unassuming. Unlike anyone I had known, she carried no hidden agenda. "Morning," I replied, feeling the word hold more weight than usual. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in a long time." "I can feel things changing for you," she said, eyes steady. "And for us," I smiled faintly, turning toward her. "It's not just for me. It's for everything I've rebuilt. career, reputation, relationships. I've learned that control isn't taken in a single moment. It's cultivated every day. Elena stepped closer, and I felt the quiet reassurance she offered. No schemes, no lies, only trust. That in itself was revolutionary. You look different, she observed. Not just confident, comfortable, like the world finally makes sense to you. It's clarity, I admitted. When betrayal hits, it strips you bare. But surviving it, analyzing it, anticipating it, that builds more than strength. It builds precision, patience, control. Every choice I make now is deliberate. Her fingers brushed against mine, casual yet grounding. And it shows. Everyone notices. Even those who tried to tear you down, I nodded. The memory of the final confrontations, the exposure of Miranda and the rival CEO still lingered, vivid in my mind. Their faces, pale and incredulous as their power crumbled, were reminders that justice didn't always require violence. Observation, patience, and foresight had sufficed. Later, family gathered for a small informal meeting at my office. Their presence was symbolic. They had witnessed my struggle from afar, but had little insight into the depths of the betrayal. "Carter," my father began, voice heavy with curiosity and restrained admiration. "I've watched you endure and rebuild. It's impressive. The company, your influence, it's remarkable." "Thank you," I replied evenly. It wasn't easy. I had to let go of assumptions, anticipate deception, and act with precision. I learned that control is earned through foresight and deliberate action, not just effort. My mother placed a hand on my shoulder. "You've grown, not just in success, but in how you handle people, situations, even disappointment. That's the hardest part," I admitted. The emotional control. Every interaction now is measured, not coldly, but intentionally. Betrayal taught me that trust is precious and every relationship must be built on clarity and mutual respect. Elena observed silently, a subtle nod of approval. Her presence reinforced the contrast between past manipulation and present stability. After family left, I turned to a group of colleagues. They had been allies, skeptics, and witnesses to the reclamation of power. "Your support mattered," I said, but so did observation. "I've learned the importance of recognizing motives, patterns, and intentions before acting. Today, everyone here sees the result of deliberate action versus reactive emotion." Jenna, my longtime assistant, smiled faintly. "Watching you navigate everything, it's inspiring. You've transformed the narrative entirely. Those who tried to undermine you are shadows now." "They are irrelevant," I agreed. Every betrayal, every failed manipulation, every overreach by them reinforced my strategy and control. I'm not defined by what they did. I'm defined by how I responded, anticipated, and acted. Elena leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "And that's why I trust you. No one else has built this level of foresight and still remains grounded in honesty." I turned to her, voice softer than usual. "Trust is rare, but it's the only foundation worth building upon now. Every partnership, every connection I maintain must reflect integrity. Not ambition, manipulation, or greed. Only deliberate alignment of values and foresight." Her hand touched mine again, firmer this time. "Then we build it together." "Yes," I said, letting the simplicity of the statement carry more weight than any elaborate plan or negotiation. "Together." Later, I sat alone in my office, reviewing documents and emails. Even in moments of solitude, the lesson of betrayal lingered. Every email from Miranda or the rival CEO now went unanswered, archived as evidence and memory. Their names were reminders of past weakness and arrogance, not threats. A notification popped up. Financial summaries, market movements, strategic opportunities. Every sector I monitored was aligned with my plans. Even minor setbacks had been anticipated. I allowed myself a rare grin. The empire I had rebuilt, the influence I had cultivated, the relationships I had carefully nurtured, everything was in control. Elena entered, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You've done it, haven't you?" "Complete consolidation." I took the cup, nodding. "It's not complete yet, but it's stable, predictable, secure. The power I now wield is deliberate, not reactive. Every connection, every resource, every strategy aligned." She smiled. "And you're finally at peace?" "Peace is relative," I said. "I'm in command. I'm prepared. I've transformed every failure into foresight, every betrayal into opportunity, every loss into leverage. Peace is a product of control, not circumstance." The doorbell rang unexpectedly. I rose and Elena followed. Outside, a courier handed me an envelope. No markings, no sender. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a simple card. Some lessons are learned too late, others never. I smiled faintly, a reminder of the past, and placed it aside. No anger, no reaction. The message was irrelevant. I had already lived the lesson and acted upon it. Elena looked at me, curiosity clear. Does it bother you? Not at all, I replied. The past exists only to inform the present. I've already used every misstep, every betrayal, every challenge to build strategy, resilience, and control. The message is inconsequential. Later, as dusk approached, I walked through the city streets, Elena by my side. The air was crisp, carrying the subtle scent of opportunity. Lights reflected off glass buildings, each a symbol of ambition, power, and choice. I never realized how liberating control could feel, she said softly. It's not control over others, I replied, but control over consequence, over narrative, over the actions I take and the outcomes I cultivate. That's freedom. That's mastery. Her hand slipped into mine, and I felt the weight of trust, mutual respect, and genuine partnership. Unlike every previous relationship, there were no hidden agendas, no manipulation, no shadows. At night, back in the penthouse, I gazed out at the city below. Each light, each building, each street represented a decision, a challenge, a risk managed and mastered. I had reclaimed everything I had lost: company, reputation, self-respect, and in doing so, I had transformed entirely. Elena rested a hand on my shoulder. You've changed everything, Carter. You've taken the worst, learned from it, and built something far greater than before. Yes, I whispered, and no one can undo it now. The past is irrelevant. Every choice I make now is deliberate, aligned with foresight, integrity, and trust. We stood together watching the city. I reflected on the journey. Betrayal had been brutal, humiliation sharp, loss profound. Yet every step had forged strategy, patience, and clarity. I was no longer the man who stumbled, who faltered, who allowed others' selfishness to dictate my life. I was deliberate. I was prepared. I was master of my destiny. Are you ready? Elena asked quietly. I nodded, squeezing her hand. I've been ready for this moment my entire life. Every failure led me here. Every betrayal prepared me for this. Today we move forward, together, deliberate and unshakable. The future stretched ahead, vast and uncharted, yet entirely under my influence. Betrayal was a memory, fear a tool of the past, and uncertainty a calculated variable. I had been broken, watched my world collapse, and endured humiliation. But I had emerged reborn, empowered, and resolute. Tonight, I allowed myself a rare smile. The throne of my life, meticulously reclaimed and guarded, was secure. Every relationship, every decision, every connection now flowed through foresight, trust, and deliberate action. I had transformed from victim to victor, from reactive to strategic, from broken to whole. Let's go home, I said finally. Elena smiled, the simple act grounding the triumph. Home, she echoed, and for the first time in years, I felt complete. Fully alive, fully reborn, fully in control.